If people don't get behind things like this, then we never kind of make that next step.
For anyone that is not aware of you yet, what's the best way to introduce David Downs?
Yeah, so it's hard to know. I guess I've been around the technology sector for about 30 years now in New Zealand as someone who ran my own technology company. I worked for a big international tech company for many years. I've worked in the government trying to help tech companies grow. So I've basically been around the technology sector for most of my working career.
What's interesting about technology to you back then and still now?
Yeah, back when I first started, I was a developer. I was on the tools, and I just loved, being able to create things out of nothing and solve business problems. But as I've got older, I've realised that actually technology has this enormous power of changing society and making New Zealand a better place. And that's really about showcasing how New Zealand can be more productive, how businesses can grow faster, adopt technology more quickly, ultimately helping people out. That's actually where it's become most interesting for me.
You worked in many different places, in leadership roles, inside and outside the industry. What's your take on how we're doing now as a tech industry in New Zealand versus the struggles we had in the past?
Yeah, when you reflect on the progress that's made in New Zealand technology sector, I started probably my working career in the early 90s. And we were really struggling with, internet access and really low-spec computers and stuff like that. And now we've seen this industry just develop, and it was slowly for the first few years, but it's, as always with the technology sector, it's exponential growth. So the last 10 or 15 years has just been so exciting. I remember sitting around and going, wow, one day we might have $100 million tech company in New Zealand. That wasn't that long ago that we thought that. And now we've got multiple businesses, some billions of dollars of businesses, and not just sort of digital software tech, but advanced aerospace tech. We've got clean tech. We've got a lot of deep tech stuff, which I just find so fascinating. So the industry has just matured, developed, and just continued to accelerate.
And going off one of your books, I think you stated that we don't have a problem with ideas. We are quite creative here in New Zealand. Our struggles or constraints come in other ways. Looking at 2026, where do you think we stand out? Where's the opportunity for tech in New Zealand this year?
Yeah, I think you're right. So technology itself has now become almost the commodity part of it, and now it's about how do you apply that technology to the brilliant ideas that New Zealanders have, and then really do that at scale, global scale, which is just, a few years ago would have been a crazy thing to think that we could do that, but now it's very commonplace for us to think at scale. The technology we're now seeing I love it because it really aligns with what I think are the kind of values of New Zealand, that technology can be good for people, good for the planet, and when we do innovate in New Zealand, we're seeing a lot of kind of for-purpose technology. So it's not just here's another app that does the same thing as 3 other apps and there's no differentiation. Many of our tech companies now are doing things that are actually amazing, unique, and beneficial for society, which I think is fantastic.
So looking at your, the last 20, 30 years of career, what do you find are the common traits, the common values or reasons why that you get behind and that you want to continue pushing?
Yeah, for me, getting behind the tech sector is about getting behind the people in the tech sector. And getting people together. You meet the sort of entrepreneurs, the founders, the technical people that work inside tech companies, the corporates and the people inside the corporates that are working on technology enabling business. That's actually where it really gets interesting. Like many people in my 20s, I was a complete nerd on the actual tech, geeking out, buying things I didn't need, trying to write software, all that sort of jazz. That's still interesting, but it's far more interesting now to see the people behind it and realise that we're now seeing technology as a tool to make the world a better place. And I know that sounds really grandiose, but I genuinely mean it. And we're now seeing that we can do that at scale from New Zealand and actually change the world. And it's not a pipe dream. There are multiple New Zealand businesses who are doing things that are significant on a global scale now, and that's fantastic.
New Zealand Tech Expo, kind of segue from the last question. Yep. Why are you getting behind it, and what are you hoping that it achieves?
The New Zealand Tech Expo, there's magic when people come together. When humans come together, sharing ideas, creative collaborations. There's sort of there's beautiful coincidences and serendipity that happens, and so having a lot of people in one space is really important. We've spent many years behind screens and sort of remote from each other during COVID, and we're still struggling, I think, sometimes to get that collaboration going. I think if there's one thing about New Zealand that we could improve, it's how we collaborate together. We're a long, thin country. We've got tech ecosystems all around the place, which is cool. But actually bringing them together and showing and having a big expo will be fantastic. It'll allow us to, benchmark ourselves against others, see who we want to work with, look up to some people that we admire, get inspired, hopefully get some great business value out of it. So, getting together at the Tech Expo is going to help people really come together and grow the industry, have more impact for their businesses.
Awesome, fantastic. We are 6 months away from the event. We have huge interest from business owners and founders from the regions coming into New Zealand, as well as local Aucklanders, and SMEs, startups that want to connect with enterprise and big tech. What's the value of putting the small ones and the big ones in the same room?
Yeah, I've seen quite a lot in my career that we need to be heterogeneous. We need lots of different players coming together to have ideas. So you have individual one-person bands, little tiny companies, but they actually can teach the big corporates. Corporates have scale, but they're not often nimble. And small businesses, typically can pivot and change, but they don't have the path to market. So when you bring lots of different size, scale, different types of technology, different ways of thinking, diversity is a huge strength in the tech sector and in all dimensions. Bring them all together in one place and allow people to kind of work out how they can collaborate. And I think one thing we could do better in New Zealand, I'd love to see more of it, is big corporates partnering with smaller businesses to actually get that innovation engine kind of moving more quickly inside the corporate structures. Because New Zealand needs to grow, we need to be more productive. Technology is a massive way that we can go in that direction. But we've got to be able to do it cleverly, smart, and at speed.
Awesome. Well, hopefully we can fill the boots of that achievement there.
Yeah.
I want to thank you for getting behind it, working with the close team before the event, in the lead up, and also at the event. Thanks for getting behind it.
Yeah, well, if people don't get behind things like this, then we never kind of make that next step. New Zealand technology sector is doing really, really well. But doing things like this will allow us to accelerate that. So, congratulations to you and the team for bringing it together.
Thanks, David.